Thank you for joining us on today's broadcast. I am meteorologist Emily Niebuhr. It is March 30th, 2023. You can reach us at 1-855-937-4977 or at weather.gov/Alaska, or you can email us at nws.ar.tvweather@noaa.gov. First of all, we have this wonderful image from our Alaska Sea Ice Desk. You can see all here the pack ice from all of the southerly flow that we've had over the past week or so has really eroded some of the sea ice pack. And what's really neat on the satellite, you can see north of some of these islands, what you have Polinias, which basically is southerly wind pushing that ice away from the islands and creating open water. So it's a really neat thing to see on our ice pack. You can always find great, exciting things going on out in the north. And so this is one thing we wanted to share with you today. Another very important piece of information, it is Tsunami Preparedness Week for the state of Alaska. So we're trying to raise awareness about tsunamis. Again, there's no season for tsunamis. They can strike anytime along the coast. So it's important to be aware of how to protect yourself and your property. So here's a quick overview of how a tsunami works. Most tsunamis are caused by large earthquakes below or near the ocean floor. A plate shifts abruptly, causing an earthquake and displacing water. Waves are generated and move out in all directions across the ocean, some traveling at 600 miles per hour. As the waves enter shallow water, they compress, their speed slows, and they start to build some of that height. The wave height increases and associated currents intensifying, becoming a threat to life and property right there. So again, if you want to learn more information on how to protect yourself, please visit weather.gov/tsunami safety. Again, weather.gov/tsunami safety. Let's take a look at your current advisories and hazardous weather across Alaska. You can see it's a fairly calm day today. As we go up near Kaktovik, we do have an advisory for blowing snow into Friday morning. Meanwhile, we have some special weather statements out. We're expecting accumulating snow in the Fairbanks and Tanana areas. I got a few inches, not advisory level, but again, something to be cautious about for travel in the area. Again, as we go towards Saturday, we have a special weather statement out for portions of the western Bering Coast associated with the low pressure system that will be bringing widespread snow and blowing snow. But no advisories for either of those systems right now, but just be prepared if you're traveling in those areas. An important update for most of Alaska for our river breakup outlook from yesterday. So we have the latest information for you. Most of Alaska, we're going to have average potential for spring river ice breakup and snowmelt flooding. Exceptions to this are going to be above average potential exists for upper Yukon River, upper Tanana River, and areas of the Copper River Basin. Again, we're expecting below normal temperatures through mid-April. So this will help to delay the onset of our river breakup season. So let's take a look at current conditions. So you can see we have our low pressure system near Nome, fairly weak. It's really falling apart at this moment, and its associated frontal system. We have a separate low in the Gulf of Alaska, and that's slowly strengthening and again moving in towards the Panhandle areas. So again, we're having light snow and blowing snow associated with this low in Nome, but again, right now we're below advisory levels. Here's the low pressure system on the map. We have 996 millibars. moving in towards the Kuskokwim Delta. And meanwhile, to our south, we have in the Gulf of Alaska 989 millibar low, bringing widespread precipitation as it's moving in towards the Panhandle region, but causing rain and snow all along the coast. And again, ahead of this low pressure system, we are seeing some light snow in interior areas. As we go into tonight, we start to see warm air lifting from the North Pacific into the Bering Sea associated with this 999 millibar low. As we go look towards the Gulf of Alaska, 982 millibar low is moving in towards the Panhandle region. So it's moving slow and intensifying a little bit tonight. And again, ahead of this, as this low continues to diminish and move to the east, it's going to be again supporting some light snow in the interior that's going to continue to fall through the night and cause a few inches to fall. For your Friday weather, again, we can see that low pressure system continue to move into the Panhandle. A little warmer air behind that, so expect widespread rainfall in that area, maybe a little snow at higher elevations. As we move out to your west, again, this low pressure system is trying to lift northward with that warm air, but we do have a stagnant high pressure system at 1027 millibars that is blocking that low as it tries to move northward. Meanwhile, we have finally a separate low, 996 millibar low, coming off of Siberia and traversing towards the Chukchi Sea. That'll move rapidly Saturday morning and going to be bringing some of that snow and blowing snow along the Bering Sea coast. Meanwhile, we're starting to see some of this warm air finally make it into the Bering Sea and bring widespread rain across the Aleutian Islands. Finally, we have our low in the Gulf of Alaska, the 994 millibar low. It's going to start to diminish and drift off to the east and a little bit to the south. Let's look at some of the temperatures associated with these weather patterns we've been seeing. So we are first going to look at in the Panhandle, we're going to start your Friday morning off with temperatures in the low to mid 30s. Meanwhile, as we go into interior areas of Alaska, we can start to see we have temperatures in the 20s for your morning. Warmer temperatures associated with that cloud cover overnight. It's not going to be able to cool off as much in interior areas. And looking at the mid 20s near the Kenai. For your Friday afternoon, we are seeing temperatures warm rapidly in that spring sunshine. We're seeing 41 degrees, also seeing 42 in the Copper River Basin. As we move out to your east in the Panhandle, temperatures in your mid-40s. We look for your Saturday morning. Again, we're seeing temperatures stays fairly warm and some of that cloud cover in interior areas in the teens. And meanwhile, as we go out to the Panhandle, temperatures will be in the 30s your Saturday morning. Finally, for your Saturday afternoon, we're seeing temperatures warm again into the lower 40s for the Panhandle, and we're seeing temperatures warm again in the valleys up into the mid-30s. So another beautiful Saturday. For your Friday morning in the interior areas under clear skies, we're going to get pretty chilly. It's going to be -3, -4. So temperatures will be chilly in that morning. As we go to Friday afternoon, temperatures will warm again in that spring sunshine. So into the mid-teens. As we go further west, temperatures will be in the mid-20s along the Bering Sea coast. For Saturday morning, again, chilly temperatures in interior valleys and along the Arctic coast, and temperatures in the teens along the Bering Sea. Temperatures will warm into the teens and warm into the upper 20s to lower 30s in portions of the Bering Sea coast. As we go further west, we can see out in the Bristol Bay area, Friday morning, we're starting out in your mid-20s and mid to low 30s out in the Bering Sea and the Aleutian Islands. We're going to warm up Friday afternoon into the mid-30s and into the mid-30s to lower 40s in portions of the Aleutian Islands. Saturday morning, we're going to see temperatures again widespread in the teens in the interior areas and along the Alaska Peninsula, warmer temperatures into the 30s, especially in coastal areas. By Saturday afternoon, again, that great springtime temperatures we're going to see in the upper 30s to 40s. Fine, let's look at your long-term outlook. For a 6 to 10-day outlook, we are going to be, even though we're seeing spring weather, we are going to have a higher chance of below normal temperatures, as we were saying earlier, and especially in the Bethel and Nome areas, with closer to normal temperatures as you move out east. For your 6 to 10-day outlook for precipitation, we can see slightly higher chance than normal of precipitation in the eastern parts of Alaska.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for Friday morning. Got IFR here along the Aleutian Range. Western Alaska Range, actually all of the Alaska Range, expanding here over the Copper River Basin on up into the upper Tanana Valley area, 40-mile country. Just about up to the Yukon River, VFR out to the west over the northern part of the state, and then some more IFR here across the southwest interior areas, as well as the North Slope Arctic coast, down to the north side of the Seward Peninsula, and some IFR over the northern Panhandle, otherwise marginal VFR there, Prince William Sound marginal VFR, big area of VFR here over the central southern Bering Sea, down across Atka Island, marginal VFR creeping into Adak, otherwise not too bad, just that zone out there. Aleutian's looking really good. Alaska Peninsula, not too bad. Kodiak Island starting out the day, VFR. That continues in the afternoon. Kodiak Island there. And a little bit better here over the interior. Lots of VFR, except along the mountains. And the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country into the Copper River Basin to about the Talkeetnas. IFR down across Yakutat and lingering over the northern southeast coast. Good VFR, again, Bering Sea, but some IFR here with a system to the south, nudging its way northward to Adak, westward to about Kiska Island there. Atka, marginal VFR. Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula, good VFR, as well as the Pribilofs. And that holds into Saturday morning, St. Paul, St. George, VFR. Fox Islands, a little bit of marginal VFR along the mountainous terrain of the Alaska Peninsula, Aleutian Mountains there. IFR here along the western Alaska Range, and again continuing up into the Yukon Flats there across the Tanana Valley, Nenana, Fairbanks, maybe Delta, and Eielson with marginal VFR for the North Slope and the Arctic coast. And VFR now, Prince William Sound, Copper River Basin, really looking good here starting the day, or day Saturday there, southern Alaska, lower conditions over the Panhandle, and lots of VFR, Kodiak Island for Saturday afternoon, maybe some marginal VFR coming across the Kuskokwim Valley, but this area of IFR with that front that's pushing eastward here, mostly staying up over the northwest interior, down into the northern Yukon Delta, areas of marginal VFR along the Brooks Range into the Koyukuk Valley areas, but looking really good southern Alaska and the Panhandle, except some IFR on the south coast. Now we've got a huge area IFR here from Fox Islands all the way out to the Komodorskis, covering the southern Bering Sea. Anatuvik, call it marginal tomorrow at times, and for Adigan, VFR for that pass, and Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR gradually becoming marginal in the afternoon. Look for improvement late morning through the afternoon hours. Same trend for Rainy again, and IFR looks like it'll be windy, looks like it'll be IFR most of the day tomorrow. Isabel, same thing, IFR flying through the eastern Alaska Range. Mentasta, IFR either approach. Tanita, though, lowest conditions here on the eastern entrance, better as you head out the west side there. And for Portage, marginal VFR becomes VFR at some point in the day tomorrow. And for Chilkoot and White, IFR, maybe some improvement in the afternoon even for these two passes. And the freezing level at the surface here, again, up over a little inland here across southern Alaska and into the central Bering Sea, north of the Panhandle and 2,000 feet south of everywhere, just south of the central Aleutians there. Moving on to Icing. Icing coming in with a system to the south, so some areas of isolated moderate rime icing spreading into the central and western Aleutians, icing free over the remainder of the state of any significance, and then probably some areas of isolated moderate rime or mixed icing over the southeast coast here, above about 5,000 feet, maybe up along the eastern North Gulf Coast as well. And for the jet stream, not much wind flow at this elevation, 33,000 feet over mainland Alaska into the Gulf, but there is a jet core here, 110 increasing to about 140, 145 knots out of the northwest across the Alaska Peninsula, clipping in the eastern Aleutians, and 9,000 feet northwest, 35 to 45 knots here along the southwest coast, strongest over the Alaska Peninsula, 9,000 feet, 45 knot northwest winds here for the Alaska Peninsula, again about 40 knots on the southwest coast, and strongest winds south of this low center, so not really reaching the panhandle, stronger winds out to the west. Turbulence with that next system coming in, moderate chop, western central Aleutians, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, Togiak Bay as well, and maybe for the eastern North Gulf.
Howdy, Star Watchers. We're twinning today. You're looking at stars, and I'm looking at stars. We're both looking at stars. Anyway, the twin stars, Pollux and Castor, are visible tonight, as are the gods of love and war, Mars and Venus. So let's find them. Hit the darkness at 8 p.m. and face west. Venus will be that dazzling spot following the sunset. You can't miss it. If you imagine a line from the sun through Venus up into the sky, you'll come across Mars. It's sort of above Orion's head. If you look closely, you'll see its reddish hue. As Mars drops down in the sky, you'll see the Gemini Twins, Castor and Pollux, and on March 29th, they'll be right next to the gibbous moon. Pollux and Castor mark the heads of Gemini, and if you have a creative imagination, you can picture the twins standing in the stars, arm in arm. So there you have it, two twins, love and war, and Gemini in the same night. Keep looking up.
You see every aspect of what Weather Service does up here in Alaska. The ice breakup in the inland waterways. When the ice backs up, you get flooding. We work hard with the native population to try to prevent the impacts of that flooding.
Good morning, AKwx. This is the Riverwatch team flying over the village right now. Good morning. How's the old river doing?
This is upstream of the village where the ice will jam, and there's no current to push anything past the village.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Yeah, so we've been flying the river over the past week or so. You know, coming into this, it was looking like the lower rivers mushing out. And what I mean by the lower river is from Tuluxac on down. And that's what we thought was going to happen, you know, just based on talking to folks about the winter you had here. And then upstream of that, we still have, you know, some good in-place ice up through the Okauskag, through the Aniak area. But really the main ice that we're looking at is the ice that's upriver, you know, in the Crooked Creek and Sleet Butte area.
So what does this cold weather mean for Breakup?
It means that Breakup is going to take a little bit longer. I realize that people are, you know, impatient to get on with summer, and I know that the birds are in and people want ice to be gone in order to commence summer, and I totally get it.
People use the river for transportation throughout both the winter and the summer. So in the winter that they have ice roads, and those are able to connect villages to Bethel and villages to each other. And then in the summer, people use the Kuskokwim River as transportation in boats.
During Breakup, they're stuck. Once the ice gets too thin to get on, the snow's melted, can't go anywhere except by airplane, which is really expensive. And so you find that people are anxiously waiting for the ice to go out.
Each year we try to classify or try to describe through our outlooks and during the process whether the river is going to break up thermally, where the ice just melts in place, or whether it may break up dynamically. And that's where there's a strong push from snowmelt into intact, hard, strong ice, and that's when we see ice jams.
As part of Riverwatch, the Alaska Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management works very closely with the National Weather Service, and we partner up out here. There'll be a hydrologist and an emergency manager, and we'll fly the river daily, looking at ice conditions and checking in with local communities. I'll oftentimes, as it allows, we land in the communities and meet with community leaders to discuss their flooding preparedness plans and other general emergency management information.
It's a partnership that we've developed over the years that works together seamlessly. We begin, I think we probably begin talking about it in early March, and then the execution phase comes in late April and May when we're actually flying.
So we're sort of the eyes of the villages, and by using the VHF radio to communicate with them, as we fly by, we can tell them, what those conditions are.
In the Weather Forecast Office, we are responsible for issuing the watches and the warnings and the advisories for the ice jam floods that can occur. Coordinate with the River Forecast Center and with the River Watch team in order to get the best information possible so we can issue these watches and warnings and advisories.
You see one NOAA in Alaska like nowhere else, and I've told every administrator since I've been coming up here that very fact. They work closely together. They work closely with their partners in the community, the DOD, the state, the local community, and the native population. It benefits that community because they're getting the expertise that resides here in the River Forecast Center, but it helps us by getting their knowledge and getting their expertise and experience and translating that into the services we provide.
We invited Dennis to come up in the plane with us to not only, have him see for himself what the ice conditions are and maybe what that threat, potential is for flooding here in Crooked Creek, but also to give us a sense of place in this part of the Kuskokwim.
It's really nice to be able to get to talk to people and talk to people who might be affected, who are being affected directly, and just really appreciate the tight-knit network of people on the Kuskokwim River.
We needed to know what it's like out there, to learn it and to prepare for it. I used to try to let people know that, it's going to break in a certain time, but I kind of quit doing that. I'd rather just enjoy it the way it is.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Thank you for joining us for the marine portion of your forecast today. First, let's look at your sea ice edge. You can see it's a widespread sea ice pack all the way from the Chukchi up into the northern Bering. As we move further south, a series of low-pressure systems and frontal systems have really helped to recently erode the sea ice pack, bringing it further away from the St. Paul and St. George Islands. As we go to Bristol Bay, same story as well. We are losing our sea ice pack there due to those southerly winds. Let's look at your Friday marine forecast. First, in interior areas, we're going to be seeing some sheltering, but we still are going to have some winds up to 25 knots near the Ketchikan area with 8-foot waves. As we go into the Gulf of Alaska coast, we are going to be seeing winds from 20 to 25 knots and waves up to 10 or 11 feet. For your Saturday marine forecast, the low pressure system is going to continue to generate some winds and waves, especially in unsheltered areas along the Gulf of Alaska coast. So again, we're looking at 25 knots and 9-foot waves. And all the way up as we go northward, away from that low, we're going to be seeing winds and waves that are a little lower. For your Friday marine forecast for Prince William Sound, again, it's sheltered. We're going to be seeing winds of about 15 knots and 3-foot waves. Similar weak winds and waves in Cook Inlet. However, as we go further south, we are seeing outflow winds with gale force, 35 knots and waves up to 10 feet. As we go further along the Gulf Coast, winds and waves are we got 20 knot winds and 7 foot. For your Saturday marine forecast, similar conditions across Prince William Sound and the northern Gulf Coast. We're also still seeing some of those outflow winds in southern portions of southern Cook Inlet and into the Gulf Coast. So watch out for gustier, wavier conditions as you go into those areas. As we go further west along the Alaskan Peninsula, you can see in the Bristol Bay area near gale force winds, we have 30 knots. We also have waves up to 8 feet. And as we go to the Pacific side, we're seeing pretty gusty winds as well, gale force as well. Saturday, we're going to be seeing conditions weaken a little bit as that low pressure system weakens and moves to the south. We're going to see wind speeds up to 20 knots and some waves up to 6 feet, 9 feet as you move closer to Kodiak Island. For your Friday marine forecast, as we move out to the Aleutian Islands, we are starting to see that frontal system and low pressure system bring gusty winds, 40-knot winds, 12-foot waves near Shemya. So we're starting to see strong winds move into the western and central Aleutian Islands for your Friday. Meanwhile, the eastern Aleutians remain fairly sheltered. We're just looking about 5-foot waves, 20-knot winds. For your Saturday, that low pressure system continues to bring gale force winds and strong waves of 13 feet up near Shemya for your Saturday. And again, widespread small craft advisory conditions up to 30 knots near Nokiski. So again, windier and wavier conditions for your Saturday across the Aleutians. For your ice edge forecast for Friday, winds 25 knots, waves about 5 feet. As we move into your Saturday, winds are going to be a little stronger, but again, fairly in the small craft advisory level. Meanwhile, in the ice pack, we're going to be seeing southerly flow about 30 knots. Finally, as we go into your Friday marine forecast, as we go further north, light northerly flow along coastal areas. Meanwhile, we still continue to see some gusts near Kaktovik, so watch out for windier conditions along the North Arctic coast. Saturday, we see winds increase dramatically as that low pressure system in the Chukchi Sea and its associated front impact the western Bering coast. So widespread small craft and near gale force winds with waves in ice-free waters up to 4 feet. But generally, this is covered by the ice pack. For your Friday, again, this is the low pressure system bringing those strong winds to near Shemya and the western Aleutian Islands. And we see that low pressure system that's going to be sweeping rapidly towards the west coast on Saturday. And we can see that move rapidly to 994 millibar low and that widespread front and that low near Shemya in the south.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.